If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, and you really want to show it, well, if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. My name's MISCHKE. Do you remember that song at all from your childhood? Do you know that they have no idea who wrote that song? Nobody knows. We sang it when we were children, but they have no idea who's responsible for this song. And my imagination is running wild with how it first came about. Who was the guy? Where was he? What was happening? Do you have a good imagination? I remember growing up, I'd hear adults say, "That little one there has quite an imagination." I'd come home sometimes in the evening and tell my parents where I was and what had happened, and they wouldn't believe me. They'd say, "That's quite a fantastic tale you're telling there, Tommy. You have quite the imagination. Now you get to bed." "No, I'm serious. I was abducted. They did medical tests and everything. I was on the spaceship for 2 hours. Oh, kiddo, you're going to be a storyteller one day. There's a book out on the imagination. It's called The Shape of Things Unseen, A New Science of Imagination. The author is neurologist Adam Zeman. No dummy, mind you, educated at Oxford, Cambridge, chairman of the British Neuropsychiatry Association. I'd like to swap brains with him, but I don't think he would. Anyway, I'm intrigued by the imagination, so I wanted to read this book and I wanted to have him on. The Shape of Things Unseen. Adam Zeman, welcome to the program.
Thank you very much for having me.
When we get to your book, The Shape of Things Unseen, we are looking at an author fascinated by the imagination. Now, imagination for me is the holy grail of life. I have made a career out of enjoying the world of the imagination going back decades. It's what propelled me into radio. I had a career in talk radio before I got into podcasting. But my favorite way to play in the sandbox of radio or podcasting, outside of the interviews I do, is to play in the world of imagination and truly play in the sense that you talk about in your book, the freedom of play. My father had a business that I always thought had the greatest name of any business I've ever heard of or encountered. The name of his business was Imagination Incorporated. It was an ad agency. The idea of playing for him was slightly different from how I viewed it, but he still operated in that world. When we get into your book, which takes a deep and expansive look at the imagination, I find myself really having to think about what I mean when I even say the word imagination. And I think we need to start there. How do you define imagination?
It's a slippery term, I agree. So really the key sense of imagination which I had in mind is that capacity that allows us to detach ourselves from the here and now and enter the virtual worlds that are created by scientists and by artists. We live an extraordinary amount of our lives in our heads. We're very often absent from the here and now, daydreaming, reminiscing. It's more the exception than the rule that we're actually immediately engaged with the here and now, I think. It may be helpful to distinguish a couple of other senses of imagination which often come into play. One has to do with what you might call sensory imagination. So that's the ability to call to your mind's eye the look of an apple or your breakfast table or your spouse, visualize things in their absence, hear the sound of a symphony or a rock band in its absence. Then there's another sense in which we use the term in which it refers really to creativity, the ability to conjure up things which are both new and useful in some way.
When you look at human beings versus the rest of the animal world, is it imagination that separates us more than anything?
I think in some senses it is. So I think that this capacity to detach ourselves from the here and now is peculiarly human. I think we live much more of our lives in our heads than other animals do. I think we've evolved an ability to control and share our imagination. I think it's very likely that other animals have some kind of imaginative experience. So if you have a dog or a cat, you will occasionally see them twitching in their sleep, and it's very likely that they're dreaming, and they may well experience a dream world. So I don't think that imaginative worlds are completely closed to other animals, but I think that we have raised imagination to a new level, particularly through our ability to share what we imagine. That ability to share what we imagine really lies at the foundation of human culture. And that's another clearly defining feature of human lives.
Well, that seems different to me, because what you're saying there is we have the ability to communicate with one another. So we have the ability to have an imaginative experience,
Yep.
and then we have the ability to communicate. So every one of our experiences, no matter what it is, we can communicate. But is the very communication of it using the imagination, or is that something separate? I think of animals as being able to communicate with one another in some way. And here's why I don't think of them as having an imagination. I'm with you on the dream that a dog might have, but I don't know where to compartmentalize that. What I go back to is your definition of imagination as taking us out of the here and now. I think of animals, even dogs, as entirely living in the here and now.
I would agree that they very largely are. And I agree that we very largely aren't, and that's something very special about us. But I think, I guess I would push back a little on your belief that they are entirely engaged in the here and now. One reason is dreaming. But let me give you another example of an interesting phenomenon that's been discovered over the last 20 or 30 years that tells us that animals aren't completely engaged in the here and now. So if a rat, for example, explores a new environment and learns its way around a maze, there are cells in the brain that will fire off as it moves from one place to another within the maze. The fascinating discovery of the last couple of decades is that when they are resting or sleeping after they run through the maze, those cells will again fire in the sequence in which they fired while they were running. So if you like, they kind of rehearse the experience they had, and that's probably important in laying down a memory for it. It may well be happening unconsciously, but it tells you that there are things happening in animals' brains that aren't completely dictated by the moment. They reflect what was happening a while earlier. So while I absolutely agree with you that this is a really important difference between animals and people, animals are much more embedded in the here and now, people are much more absent from it. You can see in animal brains and in animal behavior to some extent the beginnings of the process that takes us to where we are.
One of the ways I tried to think about the imagination was I tried to think about what a human life would look like without one. Would it be just someone going about their day much like an animal, eating, mating, sleeping, but not contemplating?
If you buy my initial definition, the capacity that allows us to detach ourselves from the here and now, that's right. It would look rather like that. If you consider individual senses of the imagination, though, there's more to say. So for the last 10 years or so, I've been working on the discovery that a group of people, probably about 4% of the human population, in fact, lack a mind's eye. So there are people who, in all other respects, are leading very normal and often very rich and productive lives who just can't visualize. So if you ask them to think of an apple, they don't see anything in their mind's eye. And people of this kind, who we've been described as being aphantasic, lacking imagery, are unable also to hear anything in their mind's ear or to feel anything with their mind's fingertip. So they lack what's been called sensory imagery, but nevertheless, they actually get along pretty fine and can indeed be, as I mentioned, productive and creative people. Ed Catmull is one of our prime examples, the recent past president of Pixar Disney, who won prizes for discoveries in computer animation and is clearly a highly, in some senses, highly imaginative person, but who imagines without the benefit of this particular sort of imagery. So I agree, a human life that was lacking imagination in that initial broad sense would be a very diminished one. But you can lack some kinds of imagination, sensory imagery in particular, with apparently relatively little deficit.
Yeah, I'm trying to get a sense of what it would mean to my life to lose the ability to have a mind's eye. The first thing I think of is maybe I wouldn't be a good fiction writer.
Yep.
This gentleman, the head of Pixar, he lives an imaginative life, you say. When you say he's advanced computer animation, I think, okay, we're moving a little bit more into the technical areas. They're less imaginative.
Yes. Though I think he generated novel techniques. So he was imaginative in the sense of being creative, being able to create things which are both new and useful. But going back to your question, what would the implications be of lacking imagery? That's really interesting. Indeed, many people with aphantasia have told us that they don't very much enjoy reading novels. They don't enjoy reading descriptive passages because they don't summon up an experience for them. They don't evoke an experience. And if there is one area in which the lives of people with aphantasia seem to be lacking something that most of us have, it's personal memory, what's been called autobiographical memory. So people with aphantasia, when they think about last year's holiday, know perfectly well what happened. They can list the events, but they can't re-experience them in the way that most of us can. They can't see the blue of the sky or hear the sound of the waves. Of course, there might be some benefits to being a little more present. You might be a bit less prone, for example, to the effects of traumatic memory, or a bit less prone to being disgusted by something that you saw or that happened to you a day or two ago. So it's not necessarily a pure deficit. I think there are advantages and disadvantages to lacking imagery.
You're listening to Adam Zeman, the author of The Shape of Things Unseen, A New Science of Imagination. I love that title, The Shape of Things Unseen. Why did Albert Einstein say imagination is more important than knowledge?
I think because imagination allows us to build knowledge. It seems to some extent to involve forgetting what you know. You have to refuse to be tied down by what people have discovered or what people have done in the past if you're to move forward.
One thing that seems to have happened to a lot of brilliant minds over the years, Einstein is probably no exception, is somebody's going for a walk, someone's doing something utterly unrelated to anything in the laboratory, and there is this cognition that seems to be a leap, some sort of awareness of something, an answer, an approach, a theory that doesn't seem to be automatically connected to previous thought. It seems to have come seemingly out of nowhere. If I have that happen enough and I'm Albert Einstein, I may think of knowledge as something separate from this, coming from someplace else.
This is very striking. So descriptions like that, like the ones you've just given, seem to be more the rule than the exception among creative people. So this sense that there's some unexpected moment of illumination, which often comes abruptly, is very widespread. You find similar descriptions among creative people in the sciences and in the arts. I think it reflects the importance of unconscious processes in creativity. We can prepare ourselves to be creative. We can learn a lot about the subject, or we can think a lot about the story we want to write. But the moment of creativity, or the process of creativity itself, depends on the unconscious workings of our minds, over which we have very limited control. And this is now becoming an area that's open to scientific study, at least to some degree. So you can give people problems which can be solved in one of two ways. They can either be solved by kind of very painstakingly thinking hard about them over a long period, or they can be solved by a sudden moment of illumination.
This idea of the conscious and unconscious, is it fair to say the image would be of an iceberg? The conscious part of our brains, of our minds, is quite small compared to the depths of our unconscious?
I think that's exactly right. And it's a very remarkable fact. I mean, I really came into neurology and neuroscience fascinated by consciousness and very much wanting to understand how it comes about and what are the brain processes that give rise to it. But in a way, over the years, I've come to feel that unconsciousness is the more fascinating subject. As you say, there's much more of it.
What I struggle with, and maybe you have a take on this, when someone has one of these moments, I'll just give you an example. The late songwriter John Prine used to say, when asked about writing songs, he used to say, "I'm just the court stenographer." His view was this stuff was coming from someplace he didn't understand, didn't visit, didn't know about, and he just made sure to write it down when it came along. When something like that is happening, is it your view that it's happening in John Prine's unconscious and then emerging into his conscious? Or is it your view that it's coming from something that anyone would have access to?
No, in my view, my rather strong view, it's coming from within his head, within his brain. Just as your and my dreams come from within our brain, we create these extraordinary, somewhat bizarre but fascinating narratives every night. Our brains are highly creative, highly generative organs. And I think the reason that he was able to compose the music, the songs he did, was that he had a highly trained brain, which, when it was offline, would work away at whatever tune or problem was confronting him.
Are you moving toward, and have you been moving toward in your work, the idea that reality is only different from a hallucination in that we have an agreed upon reality with each other, whereas hallucinations take us off in one direction or another all by ourselves?
Yeah, I mean, I do broadly agree with that. So our experience has been described as a controlled hallucination that guides us usefully through the landscape of reality. We just don't have any direct access to that reality. Other creatures with different senses and different kinds of brains would have a very different experience of the world, I think. But yes, I like the way it's put by the neuroscientist Anil Seth, who says that we tend to think of experience coming from the outside in, but in fact our experience is more inside out. The world we experience is a construction based on the workings of our brains. Quite a difficult idea to get your head around.
In a way, it's difficult to get your head around, but if you spent a lot of time with people who were dealing with brain disorders and you saw the different ways they saw the world, you would begin to see, depending on what happens in that brain, everything can change. What's out there can change. It's constructed in a certain way in a quote-unquote healthy person where it's presented this way. It's just another way it's presented.
That's right. I have, I guess, some personal experience and some clinical experience. So just as a personal anecdote, because this made a strong impression on me at the time, I remember waking as a teenager. I slept in a garden room and I woke in the middle of the night and there was a burglar wearing a striped football shirt standing at the foot of my bed. And he was so powerfully present that I shouted at him. And within seconds, he had dissolved into the pattern of light and shadow. That was a very powerful hallucination, which struck me as absolutely real at the moment that it occurred. So that was a personal experience. But yes, in my clinical experience, I've of course encountered many people who see visions of things that aren't present or believe impossible things and are fully convinced of them. Those hallucinations, those beliefs make up their reality.
I had a neurologist on a while back who talked about a survey that indicated an astounding number of otherwise healthy college students reported hearing voices from time to time. And there was nothing wrong with them. It's just something that their brain was delivering.
Yeah, it occurs in a very wide range of contexts. So in the book, I discuss bereavement hallucinations. So many people, in fact, the majority of people who lose a spouse will at one time or another have a strong sense of their presence or see them or hear them or feel their touch, momentarily at least. So that's an example of a case in which clearly the brain is kind of generating a tremendously strong expectation, probably may have a very strong desire for that experience. And once in a while, the expectation and the desire give rise to the experience.
How do you come at people who would say to you at that point, how are you certain that that's the brain?
Well,
Because you have a default setting that everything is the brain.
Yeah. It sort of reflects a lifelong bias and fascination, I guess. I mean, at the start of my career, when neuroscience was less well developed, I think it was a kind of article of faith that variations in experience depended on variations in what was happening in the brain. I must say, what's transpired over the last 3 decades, particularly with discoveries in brain imaging, which has made it possible to visualize the workings of the brain, that kind of belief, I think has been borne out. I think the universe is a very mysterious place, but I believe that consciousness is rooted within the nervous system, probably. But I don't want to be too dogmatic about that, because I think the mind-brain problem, the question of how consciousness arises from the brain, remains an unanswered one.
I'm always fascinated by those people who operate with a philosophy that the brain is operating more like a receiver, like a radio or television.
That's an interesting idea, isn't it? Yeah, I think Aldous Huxley had that idea.
And there seems to be no real hope that we'll ever get at a definitive answer there, the idea of where consciousness is coming from. Doesn't seem like we can absolutely nail that down, certainly not in this lifetime.
It seems really hard, doesn't it? And I have a feeling that to understand, it's basically the relationship between mind and matter that we're trying to understand, isn't it? And I suspect that to understand that fully, we're going to need to kind of rethink what we mean by both mind and matter.
When you started this book, The Shape of Things Unseen, what were you most excited about?
I've always been fascinated by what it is that makes us different from other animals. And it seems to me that imagination is a strong candidate. And I was excited about exploring that idea. And then along the way, I began to work on aphantasia, the folk who lack the ability to imagine or who have it in spades, who imagine very vividly, with what we've called hyperphantasia. And that kind of added an additional dimension to the story, because that was to some extent, a discovery that I and my team made, and something that we were working on. We were kind of pushing the boundaries there. Then I remember a particular experience at a talk where I heard someone talking about the placebo effect, doing fascinating work showing that if you give people a sugar pill, but you tell them that it's morphine, has a very powerful effect on their experience. It reduces their pain considerably, but it also has a very powerful effect within the brain. It actually mimics the effect of morphine remarkably. And so that gave me the sense that there's a scientific story to be told about the imagination.
This idea of hyperphantasia. Aphantasia, a person who does not have the ability to see in the mind's eye. Hyperphantasia, you have an extraordinary imagination, right?
Yeah, so people with hyperphantasia will, for example, have a mind's eye that is so vivid when they are imagining it sometimes as if they were really seeing.
I would love that. What's the downside of that?
Well, the downside of that is, for example, that such people sometimes find it difficult to be sure whether something really happened or whether they imagined it. It can trick their memory, and it can also lead to, in some cases, traumatic imaginings. So I spoke to a lady who was involved in a car accident shortly after her children had left the car. And she was haunted by imaginings of what might have happened had they still been in it, fueled by her vivid imagery.
There are artists, I think you quote some, who talk of almost living entirely in their imagination.
Yes, that's right. That's right. More in their imagination in the real world. And that can be a delight if you're enjoying playing with your imaginings. It can be a problem. So there's an interesting concept of maladaptive daydreaming, which is a phenomenon that's recently been described. People becoming addicted to their own daydreams so that they find it difficult to detach themselves, separate themselves from them and get out into the real world.
It's all utterly fascinating to me. It truly is. The book is The Shape of Things Unseen. Adam Zeman is the author, speaking to me from, where are you in the UK?
I'm in Edinburgh, the capital of Scotland.
Yes. Anyway, I'm delighted that you took the time to speak to me and to my listeners. The Shape of Things Unseen is the name of the book. Thank you, Adam.
Thank you so much for having me. I enjoyed the conversation.
Hey, you, with the retirement plan, the one that looks like it was drawn by a toddler. You know who you are. Try to imagine this. You're sitting on a beach. The waves are crashing. You're sipping something with an umbrella in it. No, you didn't win the lottery. You didn't inherit a fortune. You didn't go to Vegas and get lucky. You called Josh Arnold. Josh Arnold. That guy who's been wrestling with 401ks and IRAs and every financial acronym under the sun for over 40 years. He's not there to sell you anything. He's there to talk to you straight. He'll give you a free 48-minute consultation that'll wake you up to what he can do to change your world for the better, and it won't cost you a penny. 48 minutes free. No catch, no strings, no small print in a font so tiny it could be the freaking diary entry of an amoeba. Why are you still here listening to this? Call Josh Arnold. 952-925-5608. Do it now, or go back to your sad little spreadsheet and pray for a miracle.
Investment services offered by Josh Arnold Investment Consultant, LLC, a security and investment advisor. Past performance is no guarantee of future results. All investments involve risk. Tommy Mischke is a paid endorser.
At the Wellshire Memory Care Center in Medina and Bloomington, they believe in living. Not existing, living. The communities there are designed to feel like home, wonderfully warm, wholly inviting, full of life. Each location features distinct households tailored to different stages of memory care. These intimate settings foster a sense of belonging, a sense of community. There's a full range of amenities at the Wellshire that enrich the daily lives of the people who are there. Spacious private suites, nutritious chef-prepared meals, engaging activities, art, music, gardening, on-site beauty salon, barber services, wellness programs, transportation offerings, a 5-to-1 resident-to-staff ratio. The Wellshire provides personalized memory care that respects individuality, that promotes dignity. You ought to tour the Wellshire of Bloomington and Medina. Once you do, you'll know where you want to place your loved one. The Wellshire. Welcome back to the show. Time to go to the phones. Talk to the people so they don't feel all alone. See what's on their mind. Hope they're feeling kind. I like to take a little time during the show to call people from the listener directory, folks. If you want to get on the listener directory, you can text me at 651-321-8949. That's 651-321-8949. I'll put you on the list. And I randomly call people from the list. Calls. Calls. Calls.
Good afternoon, this is Sean.
Hello, Sean. It's MISCHKE calling.
Hey, how are you?
Good. What are you up to?
Just working.
Oh, no. I'm catching you at work?
That's okay. I'm salary, so I can take a minute.
I know nothing about you. Tell me about yourself. What do you do with your life?
Jeez, that's a big question.
All right, let me phrase it this way.
Yeah.
What's your favorite thing to do in life?
I really enjoy taking care of plants. I really enjoy making people's lives better.
You like working with living things like plants and living things like people.
And animals. I used to volunteer at the Raptor Center, and it was one of my most favorite things to do ever. Learning to catch an owl in the dark, which is super cool, but not a transferable skill.
And you have to catch them in the dark. Why?
Because the light is more stressful for them, and so they're calmer in the dark.
So you're talking at the rehab place you got to get them, and you got to get them with the lights off.
Yeah.
That almost sounds like a fun game. Catch the owl.
It is a high risk, but...
High risk in what way? How does it sometimes go south?
They can attack your face, and that's a bad day.
I one time watched some guys at a turkey processing plant in Missouri. Don't ask me why I was there. God, it was a hideous day. Okay, I was there for Cargill. They were shooting a video, and they wanted me in the video. So they flew me down there to this turkey processing plant. First, I had to tour the place, and then I had to interview different people at the processing plant to ask them how much they loved working there now that they were being given stock. I was particularly intrigued by two people who I talked to who just loved it there. Couldn't have been happier. Best job ever. One was the guy who grabs the turkeys when they come in from the farm. He had two black eyes. He was cut all over the place, and he showed me why. He would grab the turkeys one by one, and they would beat the living hell out of him because they knew they were going to die, and they knew this was their last chance, and they'd claw at him and beat him with their wings and peck at him. It was just a fight to the finish with each turkey. And he told me that the tough guys at the turkey processing plant all want to be on the line where he is, because it's you against the bird every day, one at a time, and they beat the hell out of you. That guy talked about how thrilling it was to now be given stock. He really feels now that it's his turkey processing plant.
I'm really curious. I mean, I've listened to you off and on for years and years and years, but I can't make the connection between you and turkey processing.
Well, I'll tell you what happened.
Why and how?
This was in the 90s, and I was on the radio. And because I was known and I had a voice, it was a side job. And I had little kids, and I needed every side job I could get. I was just the late-night guy on AM radio in flyover land. I mean, that's not a lucrative gig. So there was this video production company in downtown Minneapolis that was shooting this video for Cargill that was going to all its employees on the wonders of owning stock and how much that changes the feeling of going to work every day. And then after the guys who got the hell beat out of them every day by turkeys, I went to the evisceration room. Now, that's a room where the floor, walls, and ceiling are coated in blood. The turkeys come through there on a hook, and this little razor cuts their throat as they come down the line. And not only does the blood go shooting everywhere, including all over these workers, but their poop goes flying in all directions all over these workers. So these guys are covered in blood and poop while I'm interviewing them. And I'm forcing them to say how happy they are to come to work every day now that they own part of the company. Crap hits their face. Boy, we love it here. Blood splashes over their forehead. Couldn't be happier. I finally said to one, and this wasn't included in the final video because Cargill didn't like it. I said, I don't want to be out of line or anything, but how the hell could you love this job? He looked at me in the eye and he said, well, I got to tell you in all honesty, it's the people. It's the people here. I just love the people.
Because it's not the bird.
And I said, if you interacted with some people, I'd understand it. But all day, 8 hours a day, it's you and these birds and their blood and crap. So chasing the owl all of a sudden reminded me.
Wait, can I tell you a quick turkey story?
Oh, yeah.
Because I knew a guy in the 90s that worked at a turkey processing place who felt bad for them. I feel like I can't say this in KSTP. So he'd do the male turkeys a favor, before they got killed. I feel like I can't say this. He would somehow pleasure them on the way to being killed.
Wait a minute. Just wait a minute. I thought the weirdest thing I'd ever heard was the guy I interviewed who had a 6-month affair with a dolphin. I interviewed a guy at WCCU who had a 6-month love affair, romantic, intimate, sexual, with a dolphin. And I'm not joking. You can find the book online. It's called Wet Goddess. Yikes. And the guy said the dolphin initiated it. He didn't initiate it. He worked in a lab where they worked with dolphins, and apparently one of the female dolphins initiated it with him, and he just went along with it, and it went on for 6 months. Now, I thought nothing was going to get weirder than that until I learned about Mr. I Pleasure Male Turkeys. And why did he do that?
He felt bad for them.
How does he know that made them feel better? If I'm going to be executed, and on the way down to the electric chair, there's a guard who says, I feel kind of bad for you. Come over here a second. That's not an automatic thumbs up.
Well, I think he was young, so he was probably 19. And maybe at that age, you're on the way out, all I want is a handy. Maybe that's it.
I didn't even know something like that was possible, by the way. I mean, I didn't even know the anatomy was set up in a way where something like that was possible with a turkey.
You know, when guys start telling you stories like that, you often don't ask a lot of questions.
Well,
you know?
how did you respond?
I think you're just kind of stunned at that point and trying to wrap your head around this is what you do all day at work.
Because I'm telling you, my thoughts would be, let's keep an eye on this guy. This is often where it starts, and it doesn't end well. I don't know anybody who would do something like this who wouldn't also try something else that might be more disturbing still. I will say this, there's something more appealing about what he was doing than the guys I know at the Como Zoo in St. Paul. It was long ago.
This isn't a good start.
It involves an ape, a fully grown ape. Years and years ago, Como Zoo wasn't exactly a top-of-the-line zoo in America. And
Right.
years and years ago, zoos were a little more loosey-goosey anyway. And years and years ago, you know, you got the help you could get when you could get it. And if it was New Year's, it was tough to find workers willing to come in. And so you can imagine on a Christmas or New Year's at the Como Zoo many, many years ago, the guys hanging out, keeping an eye on the apes, weren't the cream of the crop. These guys would give the ape there, I think his name was Casey, I can't remember. They'd give the ape a glass of whiskey and a cigar, a lit cigar, and they'd hang out with him on New Year's Eve and Christmas. Casey would drink the whiskey and attempt to smoke the cigar, but would kind of more eat it. But actually, because I think that was even more degrading, the other guy actually sounds like he might have been trying to help out the turkey. These guys weren't trying to help out the gorilla.
Right.
They were just trying to have some fun. It's sort of like dressing them up in women's clothes.
Have you ever been to the Duluth Zoo? They've got like a couple lions hanging outside in the snow all winter. It's like the saddest.
Zoos are sad places in general. It's been so many years
Yep.
since I've gone to a zoo. I don't understand, given that we now have these extraordinary National Geographic specials, why we need zoos. There's nothing more interesting than getting these cameras into their natural habitat and watching these extraordinary scenes. What's watching them sleep in the back of a cage compared to that?
There is a gentleman in Wausau, Wisconsin, who,
He doesn't pleasure squirrels, does he?
no, he made a bear sanctuary. And while we were there, his little dog got out. And so to save the dog from the bear, he just chucked it over the fence like a football.
Wait a minute. He picked up the dog and threw it over the fence?
Yep.
Let me tell you why that doesn't make any sense. Once he has the dog in his hands, he's already rescued the dog.
That's an excellent point.
Why wasn't that point made to him? Bob, once you have the dog, there's no reason to throw it like a football, because if you're safe and you're holding the dog's safe, you're both safe. Why are you throwing the dog?
Again, I was just too stunned that he chucked the dog over the fence to question.
I've spent some time with black bears. The world's leading expert on black bears is Lynn Rogers, who lives up in northern Minnesota. And he's been studying black bears longer than anybody and knows more about them than anybody. And I one time hung out with him right after the bears came out of their dens in March. And he had radio collared a few of them in the fall. So we tracked them down in the woods near the Canadian border. And damned if we didn't come across one mother who was nursing brand new cubs. And you'd think this would be a dangerous situation. I mean, I was told never go up to a bear when she's with her cubs. I don't know if you've ever heard that. I think I might have seen it on a bumper sticker once. I think it said, don't go near bears when they're with their cubs. Lynn, he goes up and picks up one of the cubs. Now, I also read you don't do that. Different
Correct.
things I've read, like don't put your head in the jaws of a shark. But when the bear charged Lynn, as it will do when you're picking up one of its cubs, Lynn just held the cub in front of him so that the cub was always between him and the mother bear. Well, the mother bear wasn't going to hurt her cub, and she would have had to attack Lynn. Eventually, she settled down, and then Lynn set the cub down. It was all very strange, and I said to Lynn, this is all very weird to me. I would think we would have been dead 20 minutes ago. Why aren't we in little pieces around this area? And then he said, "You got your recorder there, don't you?" I said, "Yeah." He said, "Why don't you go up and record the sound of those cubs nursing with their mother?" And I said, "Well, that would involve getting right next to the mom. I'm talking 6, 8 inches away. This recorder's not going to pick up from a great distance." And he goes, "Crawl on your belly. I'll be right behind you." Those were his words, by the way, behind me. "I'll be right behind you. And what we'll do is we'll create the sense of a single person. What really freaks out bears is seeing more than one person, having to look in two places. They start to feel like they're getting surrounded. We'll be like one person. We'll crawl on our bellies together right up to her stomach as these cubs nurse. This is in the wild. We're in the woods on the Canadian border." I say, "Hell, I'm game. Lynn, you must know what you're talking about. You're still alive in your 80s. So I got up there right next to the bear, and these little cubs, they had blue eyes. A lot of people don't know this. When a brand new black bear cub is born, it's got the most beautiful blue eyes. They will turn brown eventually, but they're astoundingly gorgeous blue. And then I brought the tape recorder right up to the nipple of the mother bear, and there was this lovely sound. It was the most beautiful sound. It was kind of like this. And that was the sound of the cubs nursing. And I captured that sound, and then I crawled on my belly with Lynn behind me backwards, back another 20 yards or so. And when we stood up, the bear took a charge at us. But Lynn said, "That's a bluff charge. That's what you call a bluff charge." I said, "How do we know that, Lynn?" "It's in their DNA. They'll stop a few feet from us. It's a bluff." Well, it was. It was a bluff charge. He knew so damn much about him, it was kind of comforting and fun being with him. I did things I never would have considered. I'd like to go visiting sharks with him sometime now or something.
Do sharks have a bluff charge, you think?
You know what I said about the bumper sticker saying don't stick anything in a shark's mouth?
Mm-hmm.
I had to learn that the hard way. I was at the Afton House. Afton, Minnesota. It was a bar. I had had a few too many. I was with my wife, and there was a shark on the wall with its mouth open and all its teeth bared. And I wanted my wife to take a picture of me with my arm in the mouth of the shark. I had to be the 40th guy to have that picture taken. But being a little tipsy, I didn't watch really where I was putting my arm.
Ooh.
And when I pulled the arm out, I caught the teeth. And those teeth are razor sharp. And I needed many stitches. And I was taken to Ramsey Hospital, what was then Ramsey Hospital, the emergency room. I was stitched up. When the doctor asked what happened, and I told him, he brought in a nurse to take photos, not only of my arm, but with his arm around me, and both of us looking into the camera, because he said it was the first inland shark bite in the history of this state, and he wanted it captured for his little wall. He had pictures of certain patients and certain situations on his wall. So I'm there with a shark bite, and I still have the scar on my right arm.
I feel like it's slightly cheating, though. Post-mortem shark attack.
I think of it in the shark attack world the same way necrophilia is in the intimacy world. It's the same kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, this fella who pleasured turkeys, by the way, can we go with a first name for him? I'd like to just go with a first name.
Let's call him Jack.
Let's call him.
It's actually true.
Let's not call. Okay, we'll call him that. So have you seen Jack lately?
He turned out to be a good guy.
Golly, I'd like to talk to him.
I can always ask him the next time I see him.
I want to interview him around Thanksgiving.
Which would be perfect.
Thanksgiving, you know, when people are feeling bad for the birds, all the birds we're losing. There's always a moment, I believe, around then where the president pardons a bird. I'd be fascinated to talk to him about kind of balancing the scales, pain and pleasure.
I'll give it a shot.
Well, I've really enjoyed talking to you. This has been fun.
Well, it's my pleasure. Thank you for making such great shows over the years. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for saying that. I hope to talk to you again sometime.
Likewise. Enjoy your day.
Bye-bye.
Calls. Calls. Calls.
Hello.
Mailman Brian.
MISCHKE. How you doing?
Well, I'm swell. What's new in your world?
Just became a grandfather for the first time.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. What's new with you?
I lost an arm in the last week, but
Uh-oh.
tough to complain when there are people out there with no arms.
Yes.
What are those sounds? What are those sounds?
It's my postal scanner.
You're at the old post office?
Yes, sir. Just returned from the old mail route.
Oh,
Yes,
how was
sir.
delivering the mail today?
Sweltering. About to have a heat stroke.
Boy, you really are put through it, aren't you?
Yes, sir. I kind of prefer weather that's not trying to kill me.
What's the old saying about mailmen? You must remember it. Neither sleet nor rain, or what is it?
Neither rain nor sleet nor hail will keep us from our appointed rounds or
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.
Wouldn't it be something to be delivering the mail and be picked up by a tornado?
Absolutely it would. I've often wondered what it would be like to get sucked up into a tornado.
I find myself now wondering if there isn't a mailman out there who hasn't been thrown up in the air, maybe thrown over a fence by a tornado trying to keep it away from a bear. Can you imagine a mailman coming up to your house and he's on fire? I mean, he is engulfed in flames, but he's walking up and you hear the mailbox opening and you notice the mail's getting slipped in there and you realize, my God, what an honorable fella. Those guys must have felt like that today for you a little bit.
Especially because I'm my own mailman. I deliver to my house.
Your house is on your route?
I'm that guy.
Whenever you deliver to your house, is there a special feeling that's different from the feeling of delivering to other houses?
Well, yes, I get to see my beautiful bride.
Does she ever say, not today, I have a headache? So you deliver the mail to your house, and do you ever worry that other neighbors are watching, saying, boy, look at how careful he is with his own mail, how he makes sure to get it all neatly in there when it's his box. Notice how he delivers so perfectly at his own house. Do they ever say that?
As far as I know, my customers appreciate my service.
Have you ever wanted, when delivering mail, to bite a dog?
Yes, I have, actually.
I've always wanted to ask that of a mailman, just if once they didn't want to be the one doing the biting.
Oh, yeah. There's some dogs that are not so nice that I've wanted to do worse than that.
And some that you wanted to help out as if they were turkeys.
Oh, the turkeys are very aggressive.
They're lonely. How many times have you been bitten?
Twice officially, but I've had so many close calls that you develop a dislike for it, you know.
I've been told mailmen do develop a great dislike for canines.
Yes and no. I mean, I'm still a dog person. I have a dog. I've had dogs in the past.
Wouldn't it be funny if your dog is nice to you all day, every day, until you deliver the mail? Then it turns on you, puts a big bite into your calf. But the rest of the time, just a lovely, happy-go-lucky pooch. And you realize he doesn't hate you, he hates mailmen.
Yeah.
Well, thanks so much for visiting with me. I've really enjoyed it. I hope to talk to you again sometime.
Yeah, I appreciate it.
You take care of yourself. We'll chat again sometime.
Yeah, been a pleasure.
Bye-bye.
Have a good one.
Have you ever wanted glasses so cool they could make your reflection wink at you? Spectacle Shop has glasses so stylish even the sun needs a moment to adjust. They're gearing up for their $59 frame sale at the State Fair. The best retail offering you're going to find anywhere in the state of Minnesota. Eyewear normally $250 to $800, priced at $59 with the purchase of prescription lenses. We're talking about Spectacle Shop here, people. The optical store voted best eyewear shop in Minnesota in every single media poll anyone ever has. You need glasses? If you can wait until the fair, you'll find the best deal anywhere in the United States right now. Spectacle Shop will be at the fair for all 12 days. First floor of the grandstand. They used to be on the second floor. They have moved. Remember this. First floor, grandstand, Spectacle Shop, State Fair. It's a simple 1-2 punch. Go to the fair, have fun, get the best deal on eyewear you'll find in the United States in the next year. You know the thing about a bank? It's a place where they know all about money. And if they know you and like you, they help you with your money. The problem is, in this world today, knowing you and liking you has all but vanished. They don't dislike you, they just don't really know you. You're an account, you're a number. Knowing you and liking you, that's the old days. That's small town stuff. I say bullcrappy. North American Banking Company was started by a guy who wanted the good old days to return. He wanted the bank operation his daddy ran, and his grandpa ran, and his great-grandpappy ran. They had a way of running a bank, and it came with knowing, liking, and helping your customers. If they needed a loan, you found a way to get them a loan. If they had concerns about their money, about their approach with banking, you would work with them on ideas and options. You cared about them like a human being. North American Banking Company ended up having 6 locations in the Twin Cities, and all of them ended up with the same approach. They're a bank, but you're a human. Thus, they're a bank with humanity. Wouldn't you rather bank with those kind of folk? I would.
North American Banking Company. Member FDIC, Equal Housing Lender.
I was on a city bus the other day, heading off to the repair shop to pick up my car, something I seem to do weekly, and on the bus, an elderly guy leaned over and said to me, "China owns all the pandas in the world. They rent them for $1 million a year, but you gotta bring them back. China owns all the pandas in the world. They rent them for $1 million a year, but you gotta bring them back." That was it. You folks ought to ride the bus more often, if you don't presently, because this does not happen when you're sitting in a coffee shop. This is a bus experience. Things get a little more unusual on a bus, especially when the bus is full, and this one was packed. The guy was about 10 inches from me, and he let me know in no uncertain terms that China owns all the panda bears in the world. They rent them for $1 million a year, but you gotta bring them back. Now, when I got home, after picking up my vehicle, I actually looked this up. I felt I had to. Was this guy just a nut, or was he a guy that just didn't understand boundaries and wanted to pass along what he thought might be useful information? Information I may not have in my arsenal of important knowledge. Well, the guy turned out to be right. China owns all the pandas in the world. They rent them for $1 million a year, but you gotta bring them back. Now, some people might not have enjoyed this odd little guy coming up to them and saying this and this alone, but I enjoyed it. Particularly when I found out it was true. I've got a little piece of knowledge now that I don't think the average person has, and I'm not going to forget it anytime soon. It's interesting, is it not? I don't think most people are aware of this. My guess is, if you were armed with this little tidbit of information, you'd have a tiny chunk of knowledge other folks at your next party would not have, and it might be fun to throw it out there, see what happens. Interrupt people who are talking and just tell them, "Before you go any further there, Doug, China owns every panda on planet Earth, and you can rent them for $1 million a year. You just have to bring them back. Just a heads up, Doug." Tell me, seriously, what interruption is going to be more interesting than that at a party? Particularly the parties you go to. Come on, you know what I mean. Let's have an interruption contest, okay? I'll take your word for it, but let me know if at the next party anyone has an interruption that's more interesting than yours. Tell people at any time during the party they can interrupt and say anything. You'll hear some people interrupt and say, "I've got to get going, it's getting late." You'll hear people say, "Sorry to interrupt, but I'm not a fan of political debates." Or they'll say, "Sorry to interrupt, I have to refresh my drink." Or, "Hate to interrupt, but I need to use the bathroom." Or, "Sorry to interrupt, but you have cottage cheese all over your beard." Whatever other people may say when they interrupt, it won't be as cool as your interruption when you say, "Sorry to cut you off, but China owns every panda bear on Earth, and if you want one, it's $1 million, and you got to give it back after a year." Now go back to what you were talking about. I just wanted to interrupt and pass that along. Let's go back to what you were saying. It was interesting as hell. What was it? Something about being a decent athlete in high school? Tell me again how you got robbed in the state tournament. That was powerful. However, before you do, one more time, China owns every panda, every one of them. $1 million a year, got to return it. It's like renting a shop vac from Home Depot, but more expensive. And you get an actual bear. There's a related story I want to pass along. This was not given to me by a guy on a bus. I just happen to know this. I learned it years ago. I've never passed it along on a show, but it's true. King Charles technically owns all the whales and dolphins in UK waters. There's a statute that still is in effect from 1324 that designates the whales and dolphins in UK waters as royal fish belonging to the king or queen. From time to time, people have brought up changing this statute, but it has never been changed. King Charles owns the whales and the dolphins. That's a pretty cool thing to be able to say. I think if that were me, I'd say that out loud every day. I own the whales and all the dolphins. I own the whales and all the dolphins, plus I'm king. Ain't that cool? I own the whales and all the dolphins. I'm the king. God, I rule. Been a good life? I ain't poor. I own nice furniture, that's for sure. I eat good food. I wear nice clothes. I'm something else, and everyone knows. And I own the whales and all the dolphins. It's a cool thing I get to say. Do I own the sun? I ought to find out. I think I will later today. I own a lot of stuff. I'm the king. I wish that I owned everything. But there's one thing I know is true. I own the whales and the dolphins too. I own them. I own them. What about you? Well, I'd like to own a dolphin. They're smarter than pigs and dogs are pretty smart. Dolphins are smart on a whole other level. Certain countries are suggesting they be listed as persons because they're so smart. India already has listed them as non-human persons. That's their status. Chimpanzees haven't had that happen. They've been petitioning for years. Just the petitioning alone should qualify chimpanzees as persons. I say petitioning itself seems kind of complicated, but scientists say that's nothing. Dolphins do that and far more. They do far more than petition? Now I really want to own a dolphin. Give the dog to the neighbor, put the dolphin in my backyard instead. What's that in the backyard there, MISCHKE? That's a dolphin. Don't those things need to be in water? That's sure what they used to think. But these things are wicked smart, man. They know how to adjust to every environment. Wow. What's it doing there? Right there? It's chasing a squirrel. Really? It's going up a tree. Chasing a squirrel up the tree. I told you, dolphins are wicked smart. Wow. Now what's it doing? It's flying to that other tree over there where it has its nest. It can fly? It couldn't at first, but these things are wicked smart. God, it's so odd to see it fly, though. No more strange than seeing the Wright brothers move through the sky the very first time. Remember, dolphins are non-human persons. The Wright brothers were human persons. ETs from outer space are extraterrestrial persons. They're all persons. What's it doing now? Grabbing a briefcase, heading to work. It's a partner in a law firm. I think it's battling the British monarchy in the World Court, trying to yank King Charles from his claim of ownership. You can't own persons. We fought that battle in the Civil War, did we not? Wait a minute, that dolphin's an attorney? Yeah, and a good one. Only reason I know all this is he's dating my daughter. And that is going to do it for this program. Please remember the email here, MISCHKE@hubbardradio.com. Please remember the text number if you'd like to communicate that way, 651-321-8949. Until next time, so long.